maybe start off with that one. Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. This is not JP Mason. It is indeed Brian Degnan. We're doing a bit of shuffling with the starting 11, Brian, and I expect the same to happen this evening. We've got a lot to catch up on, but let's stick to the football first. Let's look upon tonight's game. European match sold out under the lights. Celtic versus Roma. Mark O'Neill has breathed new life into the Europa League campaign. But how do we line up? Give me your take on it.
Well, judging by the game at the weekend, I think Nancy's come across as a man that's very much his own man and do things his way, which I do kind of admire, to be fair. I quite like that attitude. So I suspect it'll be the same sort of 3-4-3 formation. It's just, I would hope there's a slight change to the personnel, particularly at wing back, because I think we need that defensive nuance a little bit and a bit of nous there. So I'd imagine you'll have Casper in goals, back three, Trusty, Scales, Tierney, because there's no one else really. I don't imagine I'm putting Big Dana in ahead of any of those three.
You would, though.
I'd put me up front, put me anywhere. I would like to see Colby Donovan starting right wing back.
Right.
Just because I think he's athletic enough that he can get back and forth. I think he was showing a bit of form. So I would like to see him, and I think it might just give that balance when we do have to. Because I always think if you're playing with the two wing backs, one has to be more an attacker, one has to be more a defender, so you can just shift back into that back four if you're under pressure, and then into the back three with the midfield 4-5 and attack. You'd imagine it'll be Yang starting left wing back. Now, Taneke has been decent since he's come in, but that's it. I think he's just been decent. I think he's pretty much an average player in a team that was really underperforming. So I think he looked better than he was. I don't think he's cut out for the wing back. I don't think he's got the effort. Yang, I've never been particularly, no a fan. He seems a lovely guy, but I just don't think he's good enough. But what it does do is at least give you that running power and a bit of effort. So I think him at left wing back, Big Arnie and McGregor, middle of the park, and then Hitati, Nigrin behind Maeda, I would think. Purely because I don't think you can drop Maeda for a European game because he's effort. And I don't see where else he fits in that system. So I think he has to fit up front. And that's arguably his best anyway.
I'm going to run through that. I don't agree with the entire start 11, Brian, but we can pick away as we run through. And let us know in the comment section as well how you're going to line up, because obviously Nancy has changed the shape. He spoke yesterday saying that at times he was playing with four at the back. Loads has been made about Nancy's board, his trainers, and his post-match comments. I'll get Brian's take on that as well. Just wade in the comment section. Feel free to agree, disagree, and throw in some curveballs. But here's my thinking for tonight. So we're going into the game, Brian, and I keep saying this. I was speaking yesterday about it. I don't think there is. I think the only ideal time to come in as a Celtic manager is pre-season. You get the opportunity to properly assess your squad. Even in an international break, you've got a couple of weeks, which is better than what Nancy's had, a couple of days. He's learning on the job. That's what's happening. He's learning on the job, as are the players, because the players are having to learn to adapt to Nancy's approach. And as I say, we'll go through all the different things he's been getting flack for at some point during the next 50 minutes or so. Casper saves. And for me, he's still in goals, right? Now, in terms of Kasper Schmeichel, he has come in for a lot of, I think, criticism probably since his injury. Remember, he gets injured for Denmark, Brian. Sinisalo comes in at the end of the last season. And I thought he played pretty well. And I remember, certainly from the Acsom contributors, the one contributor who really wanted Sinisalo to stay in goals until such times as he loses the jersey was Big Lawrence, right? Sinisalo's never been seen since. Casper's basically been a mainstay. In terms of form alone, listen, this is how sad I am when I'm watching a game. I can't just sit with popcorn and a couple of tins with the feet up and watch the game. I've got to take notes because I will be, discussing that match at some point, if not right after the game, then during the week. And if I was to go through every single game this season, there are moments in a lot of them where Casper makes big saves, Brian. So I think that a lot of the criticism is unfair. I would say this is more than likely his last season at Celtic, but I don't think he gets dropped on form. What's your take on the big man?
Yeah, I can't disagree. The only thing I'd say is that I'm kind of with Lawrence. I think with a goalkeeper, when you replace a goalkeeper, if they're informed, you keep them. And I think Sinisalo, I think we had to be a bit more forward thinking with him. And I think I would have probably given him the chance to progress and get the games in and keep going, knowing that Casper's going to be leaving. I think Casper's, he's obviously far more experienced. I think he's instinctively still a very, very good shot stopper, but I don't think there's that huge a drop off behind Sinisalo. If I'm honest, like if Sinisalo starts, I'm not disappointed. And I just think, given the fact we need to be looking at a bit of succession planning, unless they don't fancy Sinisalo and he's off. We've got good goalkeeping coaches, apparently. Don't know for how long, but the feeling maybe he's not good enough. But yeah, I think the criticism of Casper is a wee bit over the top at times. I think that yes, he makes mistakes, but if you look back, I think he makes really, really good. Even in the Feyenoord game, he really, really good shots, save at one each, which could have turned the game. So I think that yeah, on form he has to stay, and I suspect maybe they don't fancy Sinisalo, or else he maybe would have been playing.
Well, I look at the situation last season, and if I was to go back to those streams between Casper getting injured until he comes back in, I think I'm agreeing with Lawrence at that time. I think I'm saying it's Sinisalo's jersey to lose, or his gloves to lose. He's not had a bad game. But anyway, Casper comes in, and until the final, I have no concerns. But what I would say is there are always concerns about his injury. And when you see the goal, it's effectively an own goal, right? And also his record at penalties. So I don't know what Sinisalo's record is on saving penalties, Brian. But what I do know is that when you've seen that goal going in, I think it was 8 minutes before full time, where we're a goal up, and then Schmeichel basically sells the jerseys. I'm looking at that thinking, right, he is suffering from the injury. They might, and this isn't the hindsight on the match day stuff, I'm talking about this, they might target that in a penalty shootout. Substitute him. It would be a bold move at the time to substitute a goalie as you go into the extra time period, or even, and bring on Sinisalo at that point. People would have thought that was an absurd move until you win the cup, and then everything's fine and dandy. And it's a wee bit like Wilfred Nancy as well. I'm bringing in some of the comments here before I dive into my defensive lineup. I'm going to start off with Culture. He's looking ahead to January. I would take 4 or 5 loanees, paying way over the odds just to see this season out. It just shows you, Culture, that the short-termism that starts to infect the season infects us as fans as well. I'm not disagreeing with Culture. What I'm saying is, you look at the situation that we're in and you think, what's the best way out, Brian? So to do that might be one way of seeing the season out, might be one way of winning the league. It's so short-term, though, and we shouldn't be in that position, Brian.
No, we absolutely shouldn't. And it goes back to my point, the Sinisalo point, actually, about that succession planning. I think if I'm playing devil's advocate, when you're playing a radically different system, you need different types of players. So I do understand where sometimes that can be an issue, but I think in general, you should be agile enough that you've always got, okay, this is guy coming in, this is what we're going to need, let's see if we can do that, who can fit into those shapes as it is, who do we need to get in? And I think we should always be looking at, long term. The day we signed Maeda, we should have been thinking, all right, who's going to replace this guy? Let's start looking for his replacement now. So it's there. So it's on the shelf, so to speak. So you can always just pull it off. Because it's no Balakwisha, right? So
no.
If you go, okay, this is the type of player, what we're looking for then is, take me as an example, we're looking for someone who's got that intense speed, if possible, or as close to it. They can play either as the sort of second striker up front or wide left. So that's the profile you're looking for in a player, right? So it's a drag and drop. Maeda goes, you replace him, you move on. It's like Big Arnie Engels with Matt O'Reilly. He was bought as a replacement but he's a completely different player. So it doesn't make any sense. So you need to get that profile right and bringing it on. So I don't disagree with Culture in regards to getting a few loan players in of a high calibre to see the season out makes sense logically. But if you follow that to its natural conclusion, you're going to do that every season forever and you'll always be changing and you never get that bit further. It's almost like sticking plaster over it.
Yeah.
And I just think when you've got a guy like Nonsi coming in and he is going to be a bit of a radical thinker and he's going to need a bit of time, I think you need to provide him with the ammunition for the longer term if you're going to stick with that. And given the fact we've bought him, gave him a 2.5-year contract, got his backroom staff in, I think you need to let him decide and buy the players that he wants, and it has to be a long-term view. I think the short-term loans, I don't think it really benefits anyone, if I'm being really honest.
No, it doesn't. And recent times, the short-termism of bringing in loan deals without that option to buy has resulted in a succession of left-back loanees coming in. Sarachi, who I like, he might be perennially injured at Celtic like he has been elsewhere, but he was the third in that succession, Brian, of guys where it was short-termism after short-termism. It doesn't really work. And I think in terms of vision, our vision, we can absolutely focus tonight on Roma and trying to get something from the game and preparing for Sunday. But our vision should be the players we're buying in January should be for the Champions League next season, and therefore we'll do the business domestically in any case. You're talking about succession planning, something we've spoke about so many times. I think Sinisalo was a good example of that. I also think that if you go a wee bit further back, even to Brendan's first time, bringing in Edouard when Dembele was in the building was a good example of it. Juranovic and Johnston, definitely. We're doing that. We're bringing in a player that's as good as, if not better than the one that's in the first team, Brian. And then up top, we had a situation when we had Kyogo, Giakoumakis and all at the same time. There was a front runner, but you did have two behind them who were vying for a place in the team. I don't know if there's many areas of the park at the moment where we have that situation, unfortunately. Now, Craig Mackey and Wilfried we trust. Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% in on this manager. Was he the appointment that I was kind of pushing for and that I like the look of when we had this shortlist, Brian? Now, the shortlist, it's based on a number of different things, right? It's based on a lot of speculation, a lot of bookies odds and all this kind of stuff. We actually, as fans, don't know until after the event who's getting interviewed for the job. The only time I remember that, actually, and some people in the comments might remember this, after Billy McNeil leaves the football club, we very publicly interview 4 potential candidates for the managerial post, right? And the 4 candidates were Ivan Golak, who had been the manager of Partizan Belgrade when they beat us after a 6-6 draw on aggregate. They beat us on away goals, right? You'll remember that classic game. Paul Elliott was obviously part of that. Ivan Golak, who ended up at Dundee United and said Jerry Nixon was worth 12 million quid. Remember that, Ivan Golak? So he came to Celtic Park, and the STV cameras are outside Celtic Park watching him walking through the car park into the front door for his interview. Tommy Craig, who had been like a long-term aide of Billy McNeil, he'd been the right-hand man. He was interviewed for that job. Frank Stapleton, who, again, was a teammate, international teammate of Liam Brady's. I need to check, actually, if they were at Arsenal at the same time. But Frank Stapleton was interviewed for his first managerial post, Brian. And, of course, Liam Brady was interviewed and got the job. But we knew all about it back then, completely different times now. We don't know who was considered for this job. Nancy, although he wasn't the first choice from the 4 kind of names I was looking at, Brian, he gets the job and I'm 100% behind him. That's the way that I've always been as a Celtic supporter.
Yeah, you've got to be. It doesn't. I mean, look, the reality is we're a game in E's reign, right? We don't know how it's going to pan out. We have to. We can only control what we control, which I think paraphrases actually one of his comments when he was asked about the reaction. And I think that we go, okay, he's the guy, let's support him. What I find strange is that well, I understand it actually. I don't condone it, but I understand it. But there's just been such a visceral reaction to him losing that game, and some of the reaction for Celtic fans some guy in the comments I saw earlier saying we need to get the French Russian Martin to F or will never progress after one game. And you think, that's outrageous. That's outrageous, right?
It's knee-jerk.
It's knee-jerk. Now, again, I said this when I was on with Double Denim the other week. Would he have been my choice? No. But if Celtic, if their strategy, which they keeping secret, is everything's data-led, so Tisdale, the Sleepy Paul, as we like to call him,
having a moment of reflection at the game.
A moment of reflection, aye. If he can wake up at his desk for one of his sleepy dreams and look at his data and say, this is the right man for the squad of players we got, for the profile of players we want to buy, for the market we're operating in, fine, let's give it a chance. If it doesn't work, then we can be critical and say, look, this is nonsense, it's not working. But we can't do it beforehand. I wanted the guy that was the Club Brugge manager that's just been binned. But it might not work. We simply do not know. But while the guy's in charge, we need to back him 110%. I remember, so whenever you look at someone sort of outside the box, you think Dr. Joseph Bengalos, Wim Janssen, I suppose, to the deal, he also done a really good job with Feyenoord. Ronnie Dyla, Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah.
So 4 guys who, Celtic fans know well with varying degrees of success. We don't know what, I keep calling him Nancy. I think it's Nancy or Nancy, right? I say Nancy. You can say Nancy between the two, somebody will get it right probably. And what we need to go is go, okay, we don't know what guy he's going to be, but what we do know for definite is it's been handed probably the most difficult task, because he's come in after a legend who re-galvanised the club in one of the most toxic periods in its time. And he's been given 3 incredibly hard games to completely change the philosophy under the previous interim manager, with a different philosophy for the previous manager, all in the one season.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve our criticism, he deserves our support and he deserves our patience. And I think that I don't see, obviously it was a gutter of a result against Hearts, and we did look a bit naive in the second half particularly. But I think to throw judgments like that, we wouldn't judge a player after a game like that. We shouldn't be judging the manager. We need to give him plenty of time. And as some of the real personal attacks and some of the stuff, I think it's been really poor. And if he loses his first 10 games, I can sort of get why people might act like that. But a couple of games in feels very, very strange to me.
Without a doubt. And the thing with regards to it, Brian, only twice, I think, where you can look at the board's decision on managerial appointments and say that was never going to work. I think only twice you can say that. Any other time, when a manager has had managerial experience, then you know that it's one of these things that it's on the flip of a coin, Brian. It's on the flip of a coin. There's so many margins. There's so many nuances to whether or not that manager becomes a success. And the twice I'm talking about, some might throw Neil Lennon because he was a rookie manager, but he had worked his way through Celtic in terms of working with what was then the reserve team. James A. Forrest was part of that team. He was within the club, and it was a step up. And that I think is different to bringing in a Liam Brady or a John Barnes, who were rookie managers, not long having retired from the game, and you're throwing them into one of the biggest jobs in European football. So on those 2 occasions, he'll mend them for giving them the job. But on this occasion, you're looking at Nancy, who has had success. And I think there's, again, let's go back to it when Ange is named as the manager. And I've got to say, I'm not just saying because you're on the show, it's all out there. You were probably the biggest supporter of that move at the time within the Acsom contributor list. You came on, you said, I'm excited about this, I'm all in. And within the first half dozen games where people are starting to have their doubts, because you remember how emotionally fractured we were after COVID and everything that went down then, you were like, no, give this guy a chance. He's got a track record. And we spoke, when it started working, Brian, looking back, we spoke about this snobbery, a European football snobbery. If you've done nothing in European football, then you're not really a manager or a player. That still exists, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And look, perception is such an important force and factor. So like when Ange was coming in, and actually, fair enough, I said this to to Chris last week, double down himself. I said a similar thing about Wilfred coming in. I said, I think that I'm excited because it is a bit outside the box, it is a bit interesting, it is a real challenge. This guy might, this is something, a roll of the dice here. Now, for a long time, we made jokes about, managers because they know the city, either one of the boys, or they had to be known in the club, right? And we didn't like that. So then we go, right, let's get an elite manager, Brendan Rodgers, and somebody's only happy with that. And we go, right, we get outside the box, get Ange Postecoglou type in, and they're not happy with that. So it kind of, whatever way you slice it, there's going to be a sort of cohort of the Celtic supporters and football supporters who aren't going to be happy at first. The only it's going to be happy is if it's successful, which sounds maybe an oversimplification, but that's what the manager can control. He can control the success. He can't control people slagging his game trainers. He can't control people slagging him for playing battleships on the touchline. He's bored.
Let's be honest. You remember when you used to be able to bring in board games on the last day of school?
Aye.
Somebody brought the battleships, Brian. You just thought that was kind of like next level. Most people had Guess Who and all that Connect 4, but battleships was next level. So I don't have an issue with him. In fact,
no,
I think that there's an open goal here for someone who has an only an excuse type show to go in on this in a funny way. Listen, we love self-deprecating humour, Brian, but we've done this to death with the board, and I want to know your thoughts on it, because yesterday I justified it. Nancy, when he done his press conference, basically was of the attitude, which I think is pretty good, where he wasn't even willing to justify it. Trusty comes out and said, look, we use this kind of visual instruction.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone does. Every manager, every coach uses the exact same thing. It just so, and this is what I was going to say about perception, it just so happens that he brought it out just at the time, the worst time. You've got Tisdale napping, the team's getting beat, and he's and it's just, you go, and as soon as I was with the Swindon CSE boys, big shout out to new chairman Lee. Big Lee, well done for getting the new chairman role. But
have you met Lee? Was he one of the players? Remember down in that tournament?
Aye, Big Lee was the keeper.
Was he?
Aye. He's a great guy.
Good bunch of lads.
Aye, good boys all in. And then, but it was a collective groan. See, when the camera went to him and they had the thing, if they went, oh no, because you knew it was going to be coming. Now, see if we win that game 5-4, nobody cares.
Exactly.
Nobody cares. It's about perception. Look at Tony Mowbray, right? I was in Tenerife, working for a couple of months at the time. When Gordon Strachan, who I'm on record as saying is probably my favourite ever Celtic manager, or certainly one of the most underrated ever Celtic managers. I loved him when he was there. And he left and Tony Mowbray came in. And on paper, I was buzzing, because I remember his Hibs team were excellent, played really good football. His West Brom team, they got relegated for the Premier League that year, but they were excellent. I think he got a standing ovation off his fans for getting relegated. Obviously, his links with the clubs, with Huddle and stuff like that. So I thought, if there's a man to come in who fits the bill, who ticks every box, it's Big Tony. And it was a disaster. These are the things where you go, on paper, something can be great and it might not work. On paper, it might not be great. Wilfred Donsey, on paper, doesn't work. But it doesn't mean it won't work. We need to give him the time. We need to give the guy the time to breathe. Because ultimately, if we don't back the manager right away, who's going to? Because the press isn't going to do it. We don't know if the board's going to do it. We'll see how January goes. So the fans got to get behind him. Now, all that being said, it's also incumbent on the manager and the players to get the fan support as well, because they need to be shown enough in the games to get the fans on their feet. I remember, I think it was Rodgers at one point was giving the fans grief because he felt the support wasn't there, or I can't remember. He had a wee bit of a pop about.
He did, aye.
And I remember at the time, I was on with Big Yogi, and I remember I was really annoyed. So I said, well, hold on a second, it's not incumbent on. The fans pay their money and react any way they want. The players should be giving them a reason to get on their feet. So that's the same as well. So I don't think it's just on the manager, and it's certainly not on the fans, but I think we need to get a degree of unity at least at first, and give him the chance, because if we jump in the gun now and we're basically hanging the guy out to dry and ready when ready, I mean, I think that we're not helping anyone at that stage.
We're not. You mentioned Tony Mowbray, so I'm going to run with this. I do think, right, when he came in, I shared that excitement. I've got to say, there was also all that chat, which I've referenced about, finding a football utopia. He wanted to play with two wingers. The two wingers he started the season off with, I think we won the Wembley Cup, were Aidan McGeady and Sean Maloney. He played those two players as wingers. Now, again, on paper, you're thinking, wow, that's exciting stuff. And he wanted to buy a big centre forward, and we did. We brought in Marc-Antoine Fortuny. I think, he lived and died by his transfers, Brian. And obviously, when we get the opportunity to speak to Peter Grant, which we have done a number of times over the last couple of years, we find out a wee bit more about, again, manager signings versus club signings. So have a wee look here, just as an aside, before I get into my defence, at the list of signings that we made under Moga, right? So it starts off with Lukasz Zaluska, who was an understudy, or he was brought in as an understudy to Arthur Boric, free transfer. Landry Nguemo came in from Nancy. Now, I know that that's definitely pronounced Nancy. And he came in on loan, as did Edson Braafheid. Bayern Munich, we brought him in from, and Robbie Keane. They guys were obviously the winter signings. Robbie Keane from Spurs on loan as well. There's a few freebies. Zheng Zi, remember Zheng Zi, the Chinese internationalist from Charlton Athletic?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Thomas Ronya, free transfer as well. So we then get into the players that we signed that cost us money. Fortuny cost us 3.8. He was the marquee signing. He was a big signing. Danny Fox, 1.5. Josh Thompson, 200 grand. Greg Spence, 100 grand. Ki Sung Young, who probably ended up the best signing that he made, 2.1 million.
Really good player.
Very good player. Brilliant career down in England. And then Josh Hoyvelt, you might even have forgotten about him, £2 million. But don't forget about Morten Rasmussen for 1.3. So for me, the transfers just were not good enough. And what Granty told us was the fact that Danny Fox and Massimo Donati were sold from under their noses. They were actually sold without the say so.
Danny Fox got sold in January, didn't he? He came in the summer and got sold in January, didn't he?
Sold in January, as did Scott McDonald was sold to make way for Robbie Keane. Big players in the summer that left: Bobo Baldi, Jan Renegura, Hesselink, Shinsuke Nakamura. So I actually think that, it was a disaster, and I'll never forget the 4-0 drubbing at Love Street with Aidan McGeady playing left back, I think, at the end of the game.
That's right.
But the signings were rotten. The signings were absolutely rotten. And to be fair,
good job we've moved on for that. Good job we get it right now after all these years of experience. At least we learned our lesson, Paul. Mistakes were made, but we've learned our lesson.
It was only 15 years ago, Brian, all right? There's still time. There's still time.
It's on the whiteboard. We'll get to it.
Oh, stop talking about whiteboards. Right, here we go. Thank you very much, Andy Borland, for supporting the Celtic State of Mind. We really appreciate that. And also Dylan Patrick Pierce, who says, rumour has it that the Buns were looking at Nancy in January. I think that is true. I think he was on a shortlist at Rangers at some point. Could this unwarranted...
At one point.
Could this unwarranted criticism be sour grapes? Yes. In a word, yes, it could be. In terms of the press, the reason I'm saying this, Brian, is, of course, in the last week or so, and I've only heard this anecdotally, by the way, the club have placed a temporary hold on Celtic fans who have media platforms attending what they would normally attend in terms of a rota for press conferences, player and management, unveilings, etc., etc. There's been other things in the past. For example, we were invited to a Joe Hart audience, an interview with Joe Hart, stuff like that. Anyway, I've only heard it anecdotally. So I've contacted all the contacts that I've had contact with. Far too many use of the word contact here, but I did. And not one of them came back to me, which is just world-class communication, guys. So well done. Brilliant for getting back to us there to confirm whether or not we just turn up at Lennoxtown or Celtic Park the next time we're on the rota, because you've not told us one way or another. However, they're quite happy, Brian, to invite these people in who will use all that nonsense, and we're talking nonsense here, right, to have a go at our football club and our manager. So I think that needs to be reviewed. It needs to be addressed. And it's not a selfish thing. Listen, if they don't want me to go back into a press conference, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever to Acsom and our output. It really doesn't, Brian, right? It's the principle of the matter. And when we were asked back in 2020, when it was a new thing under Don Mackay, we were all for it, thinking that this could lead and progress to something bigger and better. And every single suggestion that we've ever made in that 5 years has been completely ignored. So it's never progressed. It's been a tick box exercise. It'll make no difference if we're ever asked back, Brian, to be fair. Our plans will not change, but it's the principle of the matter. And it's the fact that you are actually saying, oh, it's okay to let the likes of the Daily Record or the Sun or any of these other platforms in the door to more or less take pot shots at the football club, the supporters, your players, your managers. Massive own goal in my view. Now, John
Massive
Stewart,
aggressive in the extreme, Paul, because what they're doing is it's a way for because they know that's the type of reaction, so they can have a pop at the fans indirectly by allowing these vehicles in.
Yeah.
It reminds me, and I know you're going to bring up a comment there, so sorry for interrupting, but it reminds me of when remember when Neil Lennon took the team to Dubai during COVID, and he came back and he was getting slaughtered for it, and he basically this defence. Him in the club and whatever, and he was defending. And one thing, regardless how you feel about Neil Lennon, he always, he was forthright in his defence, mostly of himself, but of the club as well. And then the next thing, Peter Lawwell done the mainstream media interview and basically threw him under the bus. And that's his man. And you think, hold on a second, like, rightly or wrongly, just back your team. Like, see the criticism for the mainstream media that Nonsense had. It's been a nonsense. It's been a disgrace. Like it really has. Like, and like he's getting slaughtered. They're making fun of him. Like, I don't want the Celtic to be reacting, being statement FC and coming out every 2 seconds and being scared about criticism. But at some point you have to say, right, all right, lads, just knock it in the head a bit here. Like you've got to stand up for your own. Like that's the one thing. The one thing that Celtic, the board, its fans, everybody should always have is that, and I saw the interview you done, with a very good interview with Willie Hawkey, and he said it's always we. It should always be we when we're talking about Celtic. Always. Just always back our own, always protect our own. What if amongst ourselves and disagreeing amongst ourselves? I don't like that, but fine. But you got to protect your own all the time. Like you got to. It's like I don't mind slagging Scottish football, but as soon as one of my English mates down here slags it, I'm full Braveheart. I've got the makeup on and out white fight with the neighbours wearing this a kilt. Do you know what I mean? It's because you protect your own, and it goes out the way. And it's just I think it's really embarrassing that we do things, especially with it's like the Sun and some of the hit jobs we put off the Daily Record at the time. And you go, especially when there's particularly, journalists that work for those corporations who are desperate to put about an opportunity, and we know it, and yet the fans and fan media aren't allowed. Chris Sutton's not allowed. Jackie Mack's still on the naughty step because we dared open our mouth. I think it's embarrassing in the extreme. It really annoys me, and it's no. I live too far away to go to any press conferences, so it doesn't affect me personally. But I think it's just short-changing fans and showing a sort of a complete sort of tone deaf, I suppose, understanding of your supporters. For me,
you've used the word personally. They take it too personally. This is the problem. It's not a professional decision because it doesn't make professional sense. They've taken anything or that's the people you've mentioned have said or their actions personally. It isn't personal. It's a professional thing. Celtic should be looking at it like that. On This Is Acsom tomorrow night, Jim Orr and I walk through the 90s, through the pages of Celtic fanzines, right? Honestly, it was absolutely fascinating. And it could have been a 2-hour show easily. We run from 1987 in the launch of Not The View right up to issue number 49 of Not The View when Fergus McCann is unveiled as Celtic's new Supremo. That was the front cover. And all the way through that, we look at all the massive developments that took place in that relatively short space of time, 7 years. And we do it through the pages and not the view, and it's fantastic, and it was really enjoyable. But there's one thing that came out of it, and both Jim and I agreed with this. The entitlement isn't with the fans. We constantly get called entitled. The entitlement back then was with the board of directors, who felt that they were entitled to call the shots and be at the club because they inherited it from their parents and grandparents and aunties, etc. And they felt entitled to grasp onto it even when the ship was sinking. I do think, and people will disagree with this because of the different nature of the financial element, I do think there's an entitlement at Celtic Park within the board, not with the fans. And the board feel entitled to be there. They feel entitled to ignore you, to lock you out, to ban fans. And that, for me, really is teetering on the edge of losing your identity as a football club.
Well, they see us as ungrateful, Paul. That's the reality. They think we're a group of ungrateful kids that are complaining because they only get 10 presents for Christmas instead of 12. That's how they see us. They see us as, like, you know, for a large part, an annoyance. They want the club to be, you know, one of a kind, a club for all, a club with its own identity, the lights at paradise, the fan base, the best place to play football in the world, but also keep the noise down a bit. Don't be controversial. Don't ask tricky questions. Don't ever question us. Like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you just can't. Or maybe you could if you communicated properly. Last week I spoke directly to whoever's watching this just now from Celtic, because we know they are, and I said to them, just communicate better, lads. Just communicate better. Just tell us stuff. Just come out and talk and explain the rationale. Like, you know, and even I tell you another thing as well. Just like, we're having a pop at Sleepy Paul Disdale, sleeping on the job, literally. But if I'm Celtic, he's getting caned in the media for that, right? And I think probably rightly so. But if I'm Celtic, defend them. Do you know what I mean? Like, do something, react. But it's just that it's this constant sort of, as I say, passive aggressive sort of this feeling that we are ungrateful, and it becomes really frustrating when you think. And I go back to that comment. It should always be we. It should be us.
Yeah.
And everybody else.
The whole.
And I don't mean that in a sort of. I don't mean that in a sort of like, don't talk to any. My best mates are all Rangers fans for Glasgow, so I'm not saying anything ridiculous like that. But what I mean is a club. The whole trip, the fans of both. It's, you know, they're there and they're always there. It's a community and a cause. To quote an actual great man, an actual leader, an actual representative of the club, and an icon. And that's what the lesson should always be. No, don't ever challenge us. Because as I keep saying, I've said it before, it's not their club. They're just there to run it and tick the boxes. They should be accountable to everybody that works hard, everybody whose great granddad supported it and lived through it, and who loves that club more than a lot of things in life, whose week is focused on our Celtic playing. Let's go and enjoy the game. Let's be with our people. Let's sing our songs and enjoy ourselves. That's the type of people they should be catering for, not pushing against and not being embarrassed by. And I think quite often that's how they come across.
You know what? At the same time as well, Brian, you're right. I agree with every word you've said there, and it was succinctly put. But the fanzine movement was very much laughing, very self-deprecating humour, laughing at ourselves, right? And it's such a shame that there isn't going to be a Celtic Christmas video, a typical Celtic Christmas video. I know that they are releasing some hard-hitting videos on very important subjects, because I'm just looking at some of the open goals that we've got at the moment. It's like the Brendan Rodgers book. Remember, it was getting dusted off last year or the year. That could be getting thrown into the fire. You know what I mean? Just to keep the fire burning. And obviously, you've got the Connect 4 board with Nancy playing with that, and you've got, you know, Michael Nicholson shrugging his shoulders. That one there in the corner, somebody's fell asleep after having their Christmas dinner. That's Paul Tisdale. There's so much you could have done there, Brian, after the EastEnders special, but they're not going to do it. Maybe we should. John Stewart, you're in. Nancy isn't winning any of his first 4 matches. After a rousing speech by Brian Declan, John, come on.
John,
you're bringing us crashing right back down to earth here. Whether he wins the 5th depends on if Aberdeen play a weakened team in Prague next Thursday. Well, you know what? I believe in the power of positive thinking, John, and I'm going to say the absolute opposite of that. I think tonight can be used as a springboard, in actual fact, and then if you manage to win silverware, then a whole different hue is painted. There is a gleam, a veneer, I think, of success straight off the bat. When I look at the back three, here's the thing. When he's talking in his press conference yesterday, Brian, he does talk about switching things about being adaptable. You know, he's getting his point across. I don't have a fixed system that I'm not going to adapt. And he says within the game, I adapted the shape. And that's where he spoke about having 4 at the back at times. Yesterday, we mentioned the tactics board and the fact that there were 2 distinct changes in the tactics, which actually bore fruit.
Yeah, it seemed to work, yeah.
Because we created chances, Brian, you know. However, I don't see him changing the starting shape tonight. So I agree with you, and this is down to personnel or lack of. I agree with you. He's going to stick with Trusty, Scales and Tierney. I don't think there's any doubt of that, even though I don't think Trusty's as comfortable playing a wee bit wider out when he finds himself closer to the touchline on his right foot. I don't think he's as comfortable, Brian. However, he's all we've got. We're not going to throw in Dane Murray again, I don't think. You move into the wing backs, and I'm looking at this. There's no way Tanecki starts for me. No way. I think he came in. He looked really, for me, as though he was going to give us massive payback on goals and assists. He's only contributed 2 in total in all the games that he's played. Balakwisha has contributed 2, and Yamada has contributed none. So
you can see how frustrated the players are with him as well. You can see quite often players are screaming, like, get up, just do this. Like, he's not teachable, I don't think. Maybe that's harsh at this stage, but I don't think
that was the frustration with Palmer.
Palmer, exactly, yes, exactly.
Technically gifted player.
Brilliant.
But does he learn? Is at a stage where he's very difficult to teach. This is going to be key for Tanecki moving forward. So I'm not playing him. I'm definitely not starting with Nygren. I thought he was really disappointing as well. So this is the way I'm going to shape it. I'm playing Maeda on the right-hand side. I'm playing Yang on the left. I think Yang performed better on the left under Martin O'Neill. So I'm going to put him out on the left. I'm going to have Maeda on the right. So you're asking yourself, who you're playing up front. We'll come to that. I think he'll stay with the 4 in a square. But there was a mistake for me in terms of the pivot. Don't put Engels on the left. Engels was like a fish out of water when Hearts scored the first goal. He plays them all on side. Put him on the right. Put McGregor on the left. McGregor's naturally on the left. Put him there. And then in front of them, I'm going for McCowan and Hatate. I'm going for McCowan and Hatate as my other 2 midfielders. And then my focal point, don't think it's going to happen. I'm playing Iheanacho. He's fit. He's fit to play. He was mentioned yesterday. I'm playing him up top. I don't know if he's the type of striker that Nancy likes, to be honest with you, Brian. I don't know if he's got the high pressing ability. He seems to like to drop deep, pick the ball up, hold it up, play in his wingers, make his way into the box. So I don't know. But from what I've seen, and, you know, it was cameos before he got his injury, I was quite impressed with Iheanacho. I'd start him tonight.
So I see the logic, mate. I think he's certainly a more natural striker than Maeda. I think you can see the difference in terms of like the touches and the thinking that Maeda doesn't quite have at times, and that intelligence up front. But I still think that because it's hard to base it off one game, but we were very direct and we did look to get balls in sort of behind, not necessarily over the top, but almost like curved in for Maeda to run onto, which any actual isn't going to do. So I do think the only reason I'd be concerned about him defensively is Maeda is rash. He's tackling because he runs so fast. When he's tracking back, his energy is brilliant, but he does tend to give away a lot of fouls. And if he's pulling back, like chasing back, yeah, he can win, but if somebody tries to do him and he knocks him over so close to the box, I think I'd want someone just a bit better defensively. And I would like him just to try and occupy and allow. So say, because I don't think McCown starting's a bad shout, actually. I maybe actually agree with you there, particularly for his energy, because he does put himself about. But if you look at Maeda occupying that back 4, or either Hatate running into space or Engels to overlap or McCown to cut in, I still think Maeda's better for occupying it than he actually would be. But you could do a million different combinations of players and things. The reality is we're playing a decent side, right? And I think if with any hope of moving into the latter stage, we kind of need to win it. And I think it is winnable. And I think that, you know, with the greatest respect to John, the commentator there, I think it will shut a lot of people up if we can get a result tonight. But benefit of the doubt time, I also think that it's still a big ask. It is still a big ask.
It would be huge.
Even if Martin O'Neill would still have been here, it's still a big ask.
I agree.
So I think no game ever for Celtic should be a free hit. But I think this is as close as he's likely to get. As long as we don't get battered, I think the performance is good. It's tighter we win. I think people go, okay, we've at least saw enough that, you know, the players look a bit more comfortable in sort of see. And like going back to the Ange comparison, I know it's a very different circumstance, but the reason I was reasonably comfortable with the sort of, I think it was 3 defeats out of 6 at the start, something like that, was because you could see what I like what I'm seeing here. I like what he's trying to do. It's like I often reference the game where we get battered off Real Madrid in Europe, but I loved it. It was one of my favourite games to watch because we went for it and we're so brave and so courageous, and I could see exactly what we're trying to do, and there was no fear. And I still, there's a romantic side of me loves when we play like that, because I think Celtic should always be swashbuckling. But I think that there's a pragmatic side as well that says, well, do you know what? If we keep playing like that, we will get better at doing that. And the only way we're going to progress is to keep doing that, because the low block stuff we try and do in Europe, I don't think works ever, really. I think you can point to, you know, one game in 20 where we'll start low block, defending for our lives and actually won. So I think we might as well go for it. So it could be a case it goes for it, takes them by surprise, and we really have that. Because the other thing I'll say is, as frustrating as the Hearts game was, if we take our chances in that first half, or 3 or 4 up.
Yes. Yep.
And we win the game comfortably, and nobody cares about what tuners he's wearing. Nobody cares about his tactics board. Nobody's throwing insults. Suddenly the narrative shifts. We can be a fickle bunch. So I think that, you know, if we really were to look at that game in isolation, if he'd been in for 6 months and had that game, nobody cares. People go, right, bad day at the office, we move on. But because nobody really wanted him in the first place, and he's following Martin O'Neill, who done a tremendous job, and we all adore, he was always up against it anyway. And I know we highlighted John's comment there, and I think we both disagree with it. But he's entitled to his view, and I do think that there'll be a lot of people who need to be won over. I just hope that any sort of concerns about him get forgotten about at the start of the game, and we just support the team and then dissect it afterwards, and we let that ride out a few months, because he has to get the transfer window to see how he does. And if January's in the board, I think will back him purely to spite Rodgers. And I do. I think that's how
that's gone back to personal over professional, isn't it?
It is 100%. And I think that what they'll do is they'll say, look, see, we're doing everything right. Look at us. We've spent, there's 20 odd million we've spent, and we've not sold any of our best players. See, if he just had listened, it wasn't us the whole time. And I think that's what they're going to do.
That will be, on the one hand, great that we're signing players of quality. On the other hand, again, hopefully that's not the motivation, because that worries me that things are being done emotionally and on a personal level. You mentioned something there, and it brought back a memory, which I probably hadn't thought about. Maeda's getting a bit of a tough time, right? And I was actually yesterday talking to ex-Celtic player Scott Allen, who says that you can see he's it has affected him. You know, the speculation has affected Dyson Maeda. If you can hear drilling, I have no idea where it's coming from. Who on earth in this weather would be out drilling? So Dyson Maeda, in that game you mentioned against Real Madrid, you will remember the gilt-edged chance 0-0 that Maeda misses. He should burst the net. He's always had that aspect to the game in him, Brian. That's not something that all of a sudden happened when there was contract negotiations or interest from other clubs.
No. And I don't think you can doubt his effort. You know, I think that look, even when he played out left and he was doing well, his crossing was still murder at times. Like, some of his first touches are wild. And we used to joke, like, if that guy did a real first touch, he'd be a great cross, he'd be the best player in the world, because he's so athletic. So you have to go, well, look what else he gives, and it's always been that trade-off we made. I think the period he had there, when Kyogo left and he scored, was it 30-odd goals he scored that season? I think that's the exception rather than the rule with Maeda. So I suspect the guy's only human, and he was, told he could go, then told he had to stay. Then the football team has been under massive scrutiny, toxic atmosphere, form's gone, then the manager's gone, then a new manager comes in, then they're away, and he's got a new manager in. He's going to be thinking, like, his head's going to be spinning. Of course it is, and he probably won't be the only one. They are human at the end of the day, and it is subconscious. If you do, like anybody in the comment section, I'm sure there might be a couple of millionaires, but for the most part, most people have got a boss and have had a boss. And if you've got to leave a job and you're working your notice period, you're going to sort of, there's a party does sort of, switch off a wee bit. I don't think it's intentional. And I know you want a prerequisite for said it should be that combined effort and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is with Maeda, that's almost his selling, but his USP is look how much ground he covers, look the way he tracks back, look the way he covers the ground. Like efforts in different ways, that's his trademark. And I don't think that's it. I just think he's always going to be, if you need to rely on him in a one-on-one situation, it's a real 50-50 if he's going to score it.
Yeah, and I think he's shown that. The other thing you mentioned there, which I think is important about tonight, is the element of surprise, Brian. So if you're studying Celtic all season, and then Nancy comes in and mixes it up, they only have 95 minutes to study. There's only 95 minutes of data in terms of Nancy's Celtic. So I think that might work in our favour. Now, there's something I want to share with you guys today, and I've been trying to share it for a while, and I've not been able to get it to work. Nothing to do with the application, but it was all down to myself, because in terms of technology, sometimes I'm a wee bit slow, Brian. Now, do you check out Celtic News Now? If you don't, then I would suggest that you should start, because this is a page. I've met the developer of this site. This is a page that I check every single day in life. Celtic News Now. It's a news aggregator, Brian. It pulls all the different stories about Celtic, involving Celtic, from mainstream media, from fan media, from the blogs, from the videos, the YouTube channels, and it puts it all in one place under one umbrella. Shows you the stories that are trending, sends you, if you register, an email every morning with, I think, the top dozen stories. It's a great way to keep on track of what's happening at Celtic. And I've got to confess, since doing the live streams every single day for the last 6 years, every single morning, I check Celtic News Now, because it's a tremendous, for me, site, app, and everything else. But it is developing, and I want to show this latest development, because this is right up my street. This is Celtic News Now TV, right? So you see the old Ferguson telly there. Can you see that, Brian?
Yep, I remember it well.
Let's switch the telly on, right? You switch the TV on, and you've got today's headlines. Look at that, right? Thursday, the 11th of December. Anybody can do this, by the way. It's celticnewsnow.com/TV. There's also links on the set. And look, all the stories start coming up. Now, I don't know if you remember CFAX or Oracle, but this is going for the CFAX vibe. Not only that, see across the top here, there is a number of different channels that are being highlighted when my cursor goes over them. So let's change the channel, shall we? And then what you see is that's obviously channel 1. Channel 2, you can watch, I believe, some... Oh, static. There you go. Channel 2's no working. Must be in Fife. Channel 3's no working.
Fix the aerial. Fix the aerial.
You need to fix it. Celtic News Now. Right. I don't know why, but there you go.
Natural fitness and genuine enthusiasm.
See that?
Oh, tremendous.
So you will get...
So for Lennox,
action.
An all-time Celtic great, whose playing career spanned almost...
And you've also got the old Championship Manager section at the end. So all those channels that were static, maybe I was just being a bit premature with my clicking action, but they will give you Celtic action.
Celtic have a new hero.
How good is that? And then you go into the Championship Manager screen. You can have a look at the fixtures. Look at that. This is tremendous. Awesome. League table. Look.
Is this on the desktop or on the app?
Both.
Both, right? So I've got the app.
Right.
No.
Get it checked out. It is fantastic. There's nothing else quite like it out there, and it's free as well. So get yourself registered. And as well as getting your daily news, you can also touch into the old nostalgia, Brian, right on my street. So thanks, David, for all your hard work there. It's a brilliant system. And, if you've not registered, get on it. Definitely get yourself registered on the email marketing as well. And every day you'll get an email with all the top stories. we've picked our teams for tonight. Let us know in the comment section if you agree with Brian, you agree with myself, or you would pick a different starting 11. But I am looking for a prediction from you as well, Brian. We've spoken about the impact of a good performance, the impact of a win. Do you think we'll get one?
Yes, I do. I think that confidence is such a key thing. I think we'll start the way we started against Hearts. I think we'll really be going for it, but I think luck will be on our side. I think we'll get an early goal, and I think that, you know, they'll try and come back into it, but I just think that'll play into our hands. I can see a sort of a Leipzig-esque performance. You know, one of my favourite goals we've scored in recent years was in that game where we basically just harried them, the corner flag, one possession back and scored for it. I can see something similar, so I'm probably being naive and a bit excitable as I want to do, but I think, I can see a win, a tight win. I think a 2-1 maybe, but I do think we'll get the results right, and I think it will give us a real bit of momentum going into Sunday. But I say, just to reiterate my other point, if we don't get a win tonight, we still need to just have that bit of patience and just see it out and back the guy. We can't be, there's so many people want to write him off and give him dogs abuse and get really personal and really off the pale, in my opinion. And I just think we can't be doing that. No one is your man.
No, we do need to get behind them, and full house tonight. I'm sure we will as a fan base as well, Brian. Where are you watching the League Cup final on Sunday, Brian?
I'm not sure, actually. I've got, sadly, one of my many subscriptions is to Premier, so I've got a house, but I'll need to see where it's been shown. Sadly, I don't think it's in the normal CSC venue, but I do need to confirm that, so don't quote me on it. But I dare say we'll find a few of the boys together and watch it somewhere.
Nice one. Well, if anyone is watching here, and there are almost 1,900 watching live, and you're looking for somewhere in the Glasgow area to watch the game, there is a fan zone at Barras Art and Design. Acsom will be hosting it. PG Carletta will be giving you the live music, and you even get a free halftime pie. So come along on the big screen. I mean, what else would you want to watch the football? I don't think we do Bovril yet, but that would maybe be a good addition. But certainly you will get a pie, you'll get free music, live music, free entry, and the game on the big screen. Come and join us. But I would suggest that you book yourself a seat. Just visit the BAD Glasgow website. It's BAAD, Barras Art and Design, and come and join us on Sunday. Looking forward to that as well. Let's run through some of the comments before we wrap up. Richie P, I remember the late 80s when we played Tommy Burns and Billy Stark as wing backs. Now, I always recall talking to Andy Lynch. As many of you will know, I wrote his autobiography, and Andy loved Tommy. I think everybody did, to be honest with you, Brian. Andy Lynch absolutely loved Tommy Burns. They were both left-sided players, and he used to say that it amazed him later in his career when Tommy Burns played a few games for Celtic at left back. He says because he did not ever want to defend. So when Andy Lynch was playing left back and Tommy was playing on the left side of midfield, he said he was terrible for coming back and giving him backup. He said, I love the man, but he hated defending. So there you go. That was Andy Lynch's take on the late, great Tommy Burns. There's a brilliant picture of the two of them in the book. It had never been published before. It was a personal photograph that Andy gave us of them, I think, in Australia. So check it out if you've got the book. Jungle Lion, let's be real here. This isn't a hard league to win. Just get the right players in. And I'm going to link this into the other comment from William O'Toole, who says, I really am not worried about who Wolf wants to sign. It's who is doing the deals that worry me. And this brings us up to January, Brian. And again, in terms of that concern, and it comes from a place of concern, I'm looking at January and I'm thinking, what gives us any kind of confidence that we do have a recruitment team or a recruitment head who will bring in the players of quality that we require?
Yes, I suppose, and maybe I'm clutching here, but I suppose the only thing I would say is, given Tisdale's involvement in Nonsi coming in, the Wolf tone Nonsi coming in, I think that you would have to assume he's scoped that out and planned out the type of profile of player. So you have to be thinking he's looking at wing backs, he's looking at pacey strikers, you're looking at a physical centre mid that can drop back and help defend if need be, which seems to be his MO. I think Quinny did a really, really exceptional piece on some of the tactics around that, which you should watch. So that gives me, I suppose, slight hope, perhaps naively, that we have sort of planned ahead. And again, I know I was sort of partially joking earlier, but I do think we're going to spend in January. I think to illustrate it wasn't us, boss. It was Rodgers. It was all his fault. I do think that's what they're going to do, because it feels like the type of thing we would do.
Is that in anger or in spite or a bit of both?
Oh, a bit of both. Look, it was the action. Remember when I think it was our opposition were giving Dermot Desmond dogs abuse, and we went for Ronnie Dyler to Brendan Rodgers, the highest paid manager, and a good transfer kitty, because he reacted, because he didn't like getting embarrassed. So I suspect, his man coming in, he'll get the backing, and then he can say, see, we back our managers, look at the money we've spent. We can do transfers right. I told you we made mistakes. Maybe it wasn't all ours. And I genuinely think that's what they do. I don't think they're doing it for the right reasons, but I think they do it. And the reality is they have to, in all seriousness, because we do have a squad that I think is struggling. I think there's a real lack of quality in the squad. And I think if the new managers get any chance of success, he needs players in. You can play whatever system you like if you don't have the players to execute it. And we saw a couple of performances, even under Martin O'Neill there coming back. They weren't great, but they dug it in. So there's still character in the squad, but you've got to build on that. And it's a big building job here in January, I think.
Massive, Brian. I'm going to leave the last commenter to come in and give us a wee bit of positivity, just in case anybody's getting concerned for tonight. Here you go. Monica uploading, I'm sensing a win tonight. I hope you're right. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. As always, 1900 strong on the live stream. We'll be back 30 minutes before kickoff tonight. Myself and Stephen Ray will be covering that game. All that's left for me to say once again, Brian Degnan, absolutely fantastic to speak to you once again, my friend. Thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.